Welcome to What If Lab. Today, we're diving into fascinating scientific paradoxes and thought-provoking experiments. What if motion is just an illusion? Can our decisions truly be rational in uncertain situations? Join us as we explore 7 intriguing theories that challenge our understanding of reality. Zeno's paradox. Welcome to the fascinating world of philosophy and science, where ancient ideas still provoke thought today. Our journey begins with Zeno of Elea, a Greek philosopher from the 5th century BCE. Zeno is best known for his paradoxes, which challenge our understanding of motion and reality. Imagine a time long before modern physics, when thinkers like Zeno pondered profound questions about existence. He crafted paradoxes to defend the philosophical teachings of his mentor, Parmenides, who argued that change and motion are illusions. Zeno's paradoxes were designed to illustrate the contradictions in the idea of motion, and they continue to inspire debates among philosophers and scientists alike. One of the most famous of Zeno's paradoxes involves Achilles and the tortoise. In this scenario, Achilles, a swift runner, races against a tortoise that has a head start. Zeno argues that Achilles will never catch up to the tortoise, because by the time he reaches the point where the tortoise began, the tortoise will have moved a little further ahead. This division of space into an infinite number of points raises profound questions about the nature of motion. Zeno's paradoxes invite us to rethink our assumptions about reality. They challenge us to consider, what does it really mean to move? Are our perceptions of time and space accurate, or are they merely constructs of our minds? As we delve deeper into Zeno's paradoxes, we'll explore not only the classic examples, but also the philosophical implications that continue to resonate with us today. So, let's embark on this intellectual adventure and unravel the mysteries of motion together. Overview of various versions of the paradox. Now that we have a glimpse into Zeno's world, let's explore some of his most intriguing paradoxes in detail. Zeno crafted a series of thought experiments, each designed to challenge our understanding of motion and infinity. First, let's revisit the Achilles and the tortoise paradox. Picture this. Achilles, known for his incredible speed, races against a tortoise that has a head start. According to Zeno, Achilles will never be able to overtake the tortoise. Why? Because each time Achilles reaches the point where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved a bit further ahead. This seemingly simple scenario leads us to an infinite regression of points. It raises questions about how we perceive distance and time. Can motion truly exist if it can be divided into an infinite number of moments? Next, we have the arrow paradox. Imagine a perfectly still arrow flying through the air. At any single moment in time, the arrow occupies a specific position and is not moving. If we consider every moment in its flight, each moment shows the arrow at rest. This paradox challenges our understanding of motion itself. If the arrow is always at rest in each moment, how can we say that it is moving? Zeno forces us to confront the notion that time may consist of discrete moments rather than a continuous flow. Then there's the stadium paradox, which involves 3 rows of objects moving relative to each other at different speeds. Zeno illustrates how our intuition about motion can lead to contradictions when we attempt to analyze it mathematically. This paradox complicates our understanding of speed and relative motion, highlighting the difficulties in reconciling common sense with philosophical reasoning. Zeno's paradoxes collectively serve as a powerful reminder of the complexities inherent in our understanding of motion. They challenge us to think critically about the nature of reality and the limits of human perception. Each paradox invites us to question not just how we move through space, but also how we conceptualize the passage of time. As we reflect on these paradoxes, consider how they relate to modern scientific discussions about infinity, space, and time. Zeno's insights, though ancient, continue to resonate in contemporary debates, proving that the questions he raised are timeless. Philosophical questions about motion. As we delve deeper into Zeno's paradoxes, we encounter profound philosophical questions that challenge our understanding of motion itself. What exactly is motion? Is it merely a series of positions over time, or is it something more intrinsic to the universe? Zeno's paradoxes push us to reconsider our definitions. For instance, when we think of movement, we often visualize a smooth transition from one point to another. However, Zeno's scenarios suggest that motion might be composed of endless subdivisions. This idea leads us to the concept of infinitesimals. Can we truly measure motion if it can be infinitely divided? Moreover, Zeno's paradoxes raise critical questions about time. If every moment of an arrow's flight shows it at rest, how do we reconcile this with our everyday experiences of movement? Are we simply misinterpreting the nature of time? Zeno forces us to confront the possibility that our perception of reality may not align with the underlying truths of the universe. These reflections also lead to discussions about continuity. If time and space are infinitely divisible, does that mean they lack true continuity? Or can they exist in a way that transcends our linear perception? Philosophers and scientists alike grapple with these ideas, seeking to understand the fabric of reality. Zeno's paradoxes also prompt us to examine the relationship between motion and change. Is change an inherent quality of existence, or is it a construct of our consciousness? This question resonates deeply in modern philosophy and science, where the nature of reality continues to be a subject of intense debate. As we ponder these philosophical questions, consider how they relate to your own understanding of motion. Do you believe that motion is an illusion, or is it a fundamental aspect of our reality? Zeno's thoughts encourage us to explore these ideas further, revealing the rich interplay between philosophy and science. Conclusion. As we wrap up our exploration of Zeno's paradoxes, we've journeyed through a rich landscape of philosophical inquiry that challenges our foundational understanding of motion, time, and space. Zeno's thought experiments, though conceived centuries ago, continue to resonate in today's discussions in philosophy and science. We've seen how the paradox of Achilles and the tortoise invites us to reconsider the nature of distance and motion, prompting us to question whether movement is a continuous flow or a series of discrete moments. The arrow paradox pushes us to think about the essence of time itself, challenging our perceptions and compelling us to reflect on the reality of our experiences. These paradoxes highlight the complexities inherent in our attempts to comprehend the universe. They remind us that our intuitions may not always align with deeper truths about existence. As we ponder these age-old questions, we open ourselves to new ways of thinking and understanding the world around us. Zeno's insights have inspired countless thinkers over the centuries, influencing both philosophical discourse and scientific exploration. The discussions he initiated about infinity, continuity, and causality remain relevant today, encouraging us to investigate the mysteries of reality with curiosity and open-mindedness. Now, I invite you to reflect on what we've discussed. How do Zeno's paradoxes shape your understanding of motion and time? Do they challenge you to rethink your perceptions of reality? As we move forward, let's carry these questions with us, for the pursuit of knowledge is an endless journey. Introduction to the concept of rational players. Hello everyone. Welcome back to our discussion. Today we're diving into the intriguing world of decision-making, particularly focusing on the concept of rational players. To begin with, let's define what we mean by rational players. In the context of decision-making, A rational player is someone who makes choices aimed at maximizing their utility based on the information available to them. This idea is rooted in classical economic theory, where individuals are assumed to act logically and strategically to achieve their goals. Rationality involves weighing the potential benefits and risks of different options, considering the outcomes of various actions, and selecting the one that offers the greatest expected utility. This concept is not just limited to economics. It extends to psychology and game theory, where understanding human behavior in competitive situations is crucial. However, it's important to note that the assumption of rationality is often challenged in real-world scenarios. People do not always have complete information, nor do they always act logically. This leads us to the fascinating exploration of decision-making under uncertainty, which we will discuss in the next section. Thank you for joining us for this introduction. We're excited to explore how rationality plays a role in decision-making and the implications it has for our understanding of human behavior. Discussion of decision-making under uncertainty. Welcome back. Now that we've established the concept of rational players, let's explore how decision-making unfolds in conditions of uncertainty. In many real-life situations, individuals face uncertainty when making decisions. This uncertainty can stem from a lack of information, unpredictable outcomes, or complex environments. When players do not have complete knowledge of the consequences of their choices, their decision-making process becomes significantly more challenging. One key aspect of decision-making under uncertainty is the concept of risk. Rational players must evaluate the potential risks associated with each option. For example, consider a scenario where a player must decide whether to invest in a new business venture. They might weigh the potential profits against the possibility of losing their investment. Here, the ability to assess probabilities and outcomes becomes crucial. Another important factor is the role of probability. Rational players often use probabilistic reasoning to inform their choices. They may consider past experiences, statistical data, and expert opinions to estimate the likelihood of different outcomes. However, this process is not always straightforward, as cognitive biases can distort perception and lead to suboptimal decisions. Let's illustrate this with a classic example, the Allais paradox. In this scenario, individuals are presented with two choices involving different lotteries. Many people tend to make inconsistent choices based on how the options are framed, despite the underlying probabilities being the same. This paradox demonstrates how uncertainty can influence decision-making, leading individuals to act in ways that contradict the principles of rationality. As we continue, we'll discuss specific games and scenarios that highlight these concepts. Understanding how people navigate uncertainty is essential for grasping the complexities of human behavior in decision-making contexts. Examples from games and their influence on human behavior. Welcome back. Now that we've discussed decision-making under uncertainty, let's explore some classic games that illustrate these concepts and their profound influence on human behavior. One of the most well-known examples is the prisoner's dilemma. In this scenario, two players are arrested and must decide whether to cooperate with each other or betray the other for personal gain. The optimal outcome for both players is to cooperate, but the temptation to betray often leads to a situation where both end up worse off. This game illustrates how rational players might act against their best interests due to mistrust and the fear of being betrayed, highlighting the complexities of human behavior in competitive situations. Another fascinating example is the ultimatum game. In this game, one player proposes a division of a sum of money, and the second player can either accept or reject the offer. If the offer is rejected, neither player receives anything. Interestingly, studies show that people often reject offers they perceive as unfair, even if it means getting nothing. This behavior challenges the notion of pure rationality, as players prioritize fairness over maximizing their monetary gain. Next, consider the dictator game, where one player unilaterally decides how to divide a resource between themselves and another player. Unlike the ultimatum game, the second player has no say in the decision. Studies reveal that many participants still choose to share a portion of the resources, demonstrating altruism and the influence of social norms on decision-making. This challenges the idea of purely self-interested rationality and highlights the role of ethical considerations in human behavior. These games illustrate how the structure of a decision-making scenario can significantly influence player behavior. They reveal that while rationality plays a role, human emotions, social dynamics, and perceptions of fairness often lead to decisions that deviate from purely rational choices. As we move forward, we'll discuss examples of irrational behavior that further complicate our understanding of decision-making. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of how games illuminate the intricacies of human behavior. Examples of irrational behavior. Welcome back. Now that we've explored games that illustrate rational decision-making, let's delve into examples of irrational behavior that challenge the notion of rational players. Despite the assumption that people will always act in their best interest, research consistently shows that individuals often make choices that seem illogical or counterproductive. One prominent example of this is cognitive biases, which are systematic patterns of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment. One common bias is the anchoring effect. This occurs when individuals rely too heavily on the first piece of information they encounter when making decisions. For instance, if a person is asked to estimate the value of a product after being shown a high initial price, their subsequent estimates may be skewed by that anchor, even if the actual value is much lower. This can lead to poor decision-making, as individuals might overvalue or undervalue options based on irrelevant information. Another example is the phenomenon known as loss aversion. Research by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky shows that people tend to prefer avoiding losses over acquiring equivalent gains. In practical terms, the pain of losing $100 feels greater than the joy of gaining $100. This bias can lead individuals to make overly cautious decisions, often resulting in missed opportunities for potential rewards. How people act irrationally in certain situations. Now that we've examined examples of irrational behavior, let's explore specific situations where people consistently act irrationally despite having the ability to make rational choices. One prominent scenario is decision-making under stress. When individuals are faced with high-stakes situations or time pressure, their ability to think clearly often diminishes. Stress can lead to impulsive decisions, as individuals may prioritize immediate relief over long-term benefits. For example, a person might make a hasty financial decision during a market crash, selling off investments out of panic rather than considering a more strategic approach. Another situation where irrationality frequently surfaces is in the context of social pressure. People often conform to group norms or peer expectations, even when they disagree or know that the group's decision is flawed. This phenomenon, known as groupthink, can lead to poor outcomes as individuals suppress dissenting opinions in favor of consensus. For instance, in a corporate setting, employees may go along with a misguided strategy simply to avoid conflict, resulting in detrimental consequences for the organization. Additionally, the influence of emotions can lead to irrational behavior. Strong feelings such as anger, fear, or excitement can cloud judgment and distort decision-making processes. For example, someone in a heated argument may make inflammatory comments that they later regret, acting in a way that contradicts their rational self-interest. Emotional responses can lead to decisions that prioritize immediate satisfaction over longer-term goals. Moreover, the presence of information overload can also result in irrational choices. In today's digital age, individuals are bombarded with vast amounts of information, which can be overwhelming. When faced with too many options, people might struggle to make decisions, leading to analysis paralysis or, conversely, hasty choices made without proper consideration. This phenomenon can be seen in consumer behavior, where shoppers may purchase items impulsively due to promotional overload, later regretting their choices. Finally, consider the impact of framing effects. How information is presented can significantly influence decisions. For example, people may react differently to the same statistical outcome depending on whether it's framed in terms of potential gains or losses. This can lead to inconsistent choices based on how options are described, rather than the actual content of those options. These examples illustrate that irrationality is not merely an anomaly, but rather a common aspect of human behavior. By recognizing the factors that contribute to irrational decision-making, we can better understand our own tendencies and work towards making more informed choices. Conclusion. In conclusion, we've explored the complexities of decision-making and the dynamics of rational and irrational behavior. Throughout our discussion, we examined the concept of rational players and how they navigate uncertainty, along with various games that illustrate human behavior. While rationality provides a useful framework, real-life decisions are often influenced by cognitive biases, emotions, social pressures, and the complexities of situations we encounter. These factors can lead to decisions that deviate from pure rationality, showcasing the richness of human nature. From the prisoner's dilemma to the ultimatum game, we've seen how structured scenarios reveal the intricacies of our decision-making processes. Additionally, we discussed examples of irrational behavior, highlighting how stress, social influence, and information overload can impact our choices. As you reflect on these insights, consider how they apply to your own life. How do you navigate uncertainty in decision-making? Are there moments when you've acted irrationally, and what have you learned from those experiences? These reflections can enhance your understanding of your own behavior and help you make more informed choices in the future. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will explore more fascinating topics that challenge our understanding of the world. Introduction to Moral Dilemmas. Hello everyone! As we dive into today's topic, let's explore the fascinating world of moral dilemmas. These situations challenge our ethical beliefs and force us to confront difficult choices. Imagine yourself standing at a crossroads where every path leads to a morally significant decision. This is the essence of a moral dilemma. Moral dilemmas occur when individuals are faced with conflicting moral obligations. These are not just theoretical exercises, they reflect the complexities of our everyday lives. For instance, you might find yourself torn between helping a friend in need and adhering to a commitment that could let someone else down. Such scenarios highlight the struggle between our values and the potential consequences of our actions. At the heart of moral dilemmas lies the question of what is right and what is wrong. How do we determine the best course of action when the stakes are high? This is where ethical theories come into play, offering frameworks that guide our decision-making. Whether we prioritize the consequences of our actions or the intentions behind them, each approach can lead to different outcomes. Now, as we move forward, we will examine specific examples of moral dilemmas, such as the famous trolley problem. This thought experiment challenges us to consider the implications of our choices in extreme situations. By engaging with these dilemmas, we not only reflect on our personal beliefs, but also gain insight into the moral fabric of society. So as we embark on this exploration, keep in mind the complexities and nuances of moral choices. They are not just philosophical concepts, they resonate deeply with our everyday experiences and the values we hold dear. Discussion of moral dilemmas. As we delve deeper into the realm of moral dilemmas, let's take a moment to understand what makes these situations so compelling and complex. Moral dilemmas force us to question our values and beliefs, often placing us in scenarios where there are no clear right or wrong answers. Instead, we find ourselves navigating a gray area filled with uncertainty and ethical conflict. Imagine being presented with a choice where you must weigh the consequences of your actions against your moral principles. For example, consider a situation where you witness someone stealing food to feed their hungry family. On one hand, you could report the theft, adhering to the law, but on the other, you might feel compelled to empathize with the desperate circumstances that led to that decision. This internal conflict is what makes moral dilemmas so relatable and thought-provoking. These dilemmas often mirror real-life situations where ethical principles clash. They invite us to reflect on what we value most, whether it's loyalty, honesty, compassion, or justice. The examination of these values can reveal our priorities and the underlying motivations driving our decisions. In exploring moral dilemmas, we also encounter the role of context. The circumstances surrounding a decision can significantly influence our moral judgments. For instance, the same action may be viewed differently depending on who is involved or the potential outcomes. This variability highlights the complexity of human ethics and the importance of considering multiple perspectives before making a choice. As we move forward, we will engage with specific examples that illustrate these moral dilemmas in action. By doing so, we can better understand the intricate dance of values and consequences that defines our decision-making processes. Examples of moral dilemmas. Now that we've established the foundation of moral dilemmas, let's dive into some specific examples that will challenge our thinking and provoke discussion. One of the most famous moral dilemmas is the trolley problem. This thought experiment is not just an academic exercise. It forces us to confront the harsh realities of ethical decision-making. The trolley problem presents a scenario where a runaway trolley is heading down a track. Ahead, 5 people are tied to the tracks and will be killed if the trolley continues on its current path. However, you have the option to pull a lever that will divert the trolley onto another track, where one person is tied down. Here lies the moral dilemma. Do you pull the lever and actively choose to save 5 lives at the cost of 1, or do you refrain from acting and allow the trolley to kill 5 people? This scenario raises profound questions about the value of human life and the ethics of action versus inaction. Many people grapple with the idea that by pulling the lever, they are directly responsible for the death of one person, even if it results in a greater good. This creates a tension between utilitarian principles, which advocate for the greatest good for the greatest number, and deontological ethics, which emphasize the importance of moral rules and duties. But the trolley problem is just one example. Let's consider another moral dilemma known as the Heinz dilemma. In this scenario, a man named Heinz must decide whether to steal a drug that could save his dying wife. The drug is overpriced, and Heinz cannot afford it. Should he break the law to save her life, or should he adhere to the principle of respecting property rights, even at the cost of his wife's life? This dilemma illustrates the conflict between legal and moral obligations. It forces us to consider the implications of our choices when faced with an urgent moral crisis. Would you prioritize the law, or would you act out of love and desperation? These examples not only provoke thought, but also invite us to reflect on our own values and the principles that guide our decisions. As we consider these moral dilemmas, think about how you would respond. What factors would influence your choice? As we continue, we'll engage with questions related to these dilemmas, prompting you to think critically about your own moral compass and the complexities of ethical decision-making. Questions for the audience about decision-making. As we explore these moral dilemmas, it's essential to engage with you, the audience, and invite your perspectives on these challenging scenarios. After all, moral decision-making is not just an abstract concept. It's a deeply personal journey that can reveal a lot about our values and beliefs. Let's reflect on the trolley problem. If you were in that situation, faced with the choice to pull the lever or do nothing, what would you choose? Would you prioritize saving the greater number of lives, or would you struggle with the moral weight of actively causing harm to another individual? Take a moment to think about your instincts. What drives your choice? A utilitarian approach or a more principled stance? Now consider the Heinz dilemma. If you were Heinz, would you steal the drug to save your wife, knowing it's against the law? Or would you respect the law, believing that there are consequences for actions regardless of the situation? This dilemma often stirs up strong emotions and personal beliefs. What factors would sway your decision? Would your love for your spouse override your respect for the law? Let's also think about the broader implications of these choices. How do societal norms and values shape your responses to these dilemmas? Are there cultural factors that influence what you consider morally acceptable? I encourage you to share your thoughts and feelings about these dilemmas. What resonates with you? What makes you uncomfortable? Engaging in this discussion not only enriches our understanding of moral choices, but also fosters a sense of community as we navigate these complex issues together. Introduction to the third man paradox. Today, we're diving into a fascinating philosophical concept known as the third man paradox. This paradox challenges our understanding of identity and self-awareness, prompting us to question not only who we are, but how we perceive ourselves and others. The third man paradox originates from ancient philosophical discussions, particularly those of Plato. Imagine a scenario. You have a particular trait, say, tallness. When you consider your height, you can recognize that you are tall. However, if we introduce a third entity, a perfect form of tallness, this leads to a perplexing realization. If we say that you are tall because you share this characteristic with the ideal form, we then must ask, what exactly is it that makes you tall? This creates an infinite regress of traits and identities, where every definition requires another layer of abstraction. As we explore this paradox, we enter the realm of self-identity and self-perception. It raises critical questions. Is our identity simply a collection of traits? Are we defined by our relationships with others? And if we can observe ourselves from a distance, as the third man would, how does that affect our understanding of who we truly are? The implications of the third man paradox extend beyond philosophy. They touch on our everyday lives. How do we construct our identities in a world full of comparisons and ideals? This paradox invites us to reflect on the complexity of ourselves and the narratives we create around our existence. As we continue to unpack the layers of this paradox, keep in mind how it relates to your own experiences of identity. How do you define yourself? Are you merely a collection of traits, or is there something deeper at play? Let's move forward and delve deeper into the philosophical aspects of identity that the third man paradox challenges, and see how it influences our understanding of ourselves and others. Discussion of philosophical aspects of identity. As we delve deeper into the third man paradox, let's explore the philosophical aspects of identity that it brings to light. At the core of this paradox lies a fundamental question: what truly constitutes our identity? Is it merely a collection of characteristics, or is there something more profound that defines who we are? The third man paradox challenges the notion that we can understand ourselves solely through traits or external comparisons. When we consider ourselves in relation to an ideal form, like the perfect embodiment of tallness, we find ourselves in a recursive loop. Each trait we identify must also relate back to an ideal, leading us to an infinite regress. This raises an intriguing dilemma. If we are defined by traits that themselves require further definition, can we ever truly grasp our identity? This philosophical inquiry has significant implications for our self-perception. Many of us construct our identities based on societal standards, cultural norms, and the expectations of others. We often think of ourselves in relation to how others see us. For instance, if you view yourself as a hard worker, that identity may be influenced by praise from colleagues or societal values that emphasize diligence. But if your identity is contingent upon external validation, how stable is it? Moreover, the paradox prompts us to consider the dynamic nature of identity. Are we the same person we were yesterday? Our experiences, relationships, and choices continuously shape our identities, suggesting that our sense of self is not static, but rather fluid and evolving. This fluidity can create tension, especially when we confront the ideals imposed by society. In examining these philosophical aspects, we begin to understand that identity is not just about self-definition. It's also about perception, how we see ourselves and how we believe others perceive us. This interplay can lead to a more complex understanding of self, where identity becomes a tapestry woven from personal experiences, societal influences, and philosophical reflections. As we move forward, let's keep these insights in mind. The third man paradox is not just an abstract concept. It invites us to engage in deeper reflections about who we are in an ever-changing world. How do our identities shift in response to our environments? And what does that mean for our understanding of ourselves and others? Influence on self-representation. As we explore the complexities of identity through the lens of the third man paradox, we must consider how this philosophical concept influences our self-representation. The ways we define ourselves can significantly affect our interactions with the world and the narratives we construct about our lives. When we think about self-representation, we often rely on a mix of internal reflections and external perceptions. For instance, we might identify ourselves by our careers, personal achievements, or relationships. However, the third man paradox challenges us to question the validity of these identities. Are we truly defined by our jobs, or are these merely roles we play that don't encapsulate our entire being? This brings us to the notion of the ideal self. Many of us have an image of who we aspire to be, an ideal that often stems from societal standards or cultural expectations. This ideal can create pressure to conform, leading to feelings of inadequacy when we perceive ourselves as falling short. When we measure our worth against these lofty ideals, we may struggle with our self-esteem and sense of identity. Moreover, the paradox highlights the dissonance between how we see ourselves and how others perceive us. We may project a certain image to the outside world, curating our social media profiles or crafting our personal narratives to align with societal expectations. Yet behind these facades, our true selves may feel fragmented or misunderstood. This disconnect can lead to a crisis of identity, where we question who we really are beyond the roles and labels we adopt. Additionally, the third man paradox invites us to consider the impact of self-awareness on our identities. If we can observe ourselves as if from a distance, we might become more critical of our traits and choices. This self-reflection can be a double-edged sword. It can foster growth and understanding, but it can also lead to over-analysis and self-doubt. In light of these reflections, it becomes essential to navigate our self-representation with care. How can we embrace the fluidity of our identities while acknowledging the influence of external perceptions? How do we reconcile our aspirations with our realities? As we continue this exploration, let's remain open to the complexities of our identities. The third man paradox serves as a reminder that our self-representation is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic interplay of thoughts, feelings, and societal influences. Influence on representation of others. As we delve into the implications of the third man paradox, it's crucial to consider how our understanding of identity influences our perception of others. Just as we grapple with defining ourselves, we also navigate the complexities of how we see and interpret the identities of those around us. When we encounter others, our perceptions are often shaped by the traits we observe, societal norms, and the narratives that surround them. For instance, we might label someone as successful based on their career achievements or social status. However, this external view can be limiting and fail to capture the full essence of an individual. Just as the third man paradox reveals the inadequacy of defining ourselves through singular traits, it also cautions against reducing others to simplistic labels. Moreover, our perceptions of others are often influenced by our biases and experiences. We may project our ideals onto them, expecting them to conform to certain standards. This can create a disconnect and lead to misunderstandings or conflicts. For instance, if we perceive someone as lazy based on superficial judgments, we may overlook the complexities of their circumstances, such as mental health challenges or personal struggles. This paradox also raises ethical questions about empathy and compassion. If we can acknowledge the fluidity of our own identities, it becomes essential to extend that understanding to others. How can we cultivate empathy when viewing others through the lens of our own experiences? The third man paradox encourages us to be more mindful of the narratives we construct around others and to recognize that everyone is navigating their own journey of identity. Furthermore, our interactions with others can shape our understanding of ourselves. When we engage with diverse perspectives, we expand our own identities and challenge our preconceived notions. This reciprocal influence highlights the interconnected nature of identity. How we see ourselves is often a reflection of how we perceive and relate to others. As we continue to explore these themes, let's consider how we can foster more inclusive and compassionate representations of others. By recognizing the complexity of identities, both our own and those of others, we can create a more empathetic and understanding world. In this journey of exploration, let's remain open to the lessons that the third man paradox teaches us about identity and the intricate web of human connection. Conclusion. As we wrap up our exploration of the third man paradox, it's essential to reflect on the profound insights we've uncovered about identity and representation. This paradox challenges us to reconsider not only how we define ourselves, but also how we perceive and interact with others in an ever-complex world. Throughout our discussion, we've seen that identity is not a fixed entity, but rather a dynamic interplay of traits, experiences, and societal influences. The third man paradox encourages us to question the labels we adopt and the ideals we strive for, reminding us that our identities are fluid and continually evolving. It invites us to embrace the complexities of our existence and to recognize that we are more than the sum of our parts. Moreover, as we extend this understanding to others, we are urged to cultivate empathy and compassion. By acknowledging the multifaceted nature of identity, we can move beyond superficial judgments and foster deeper connections. This is not just an intellectual exercise. It has real-world implications for how we relate to one another and create inclusive communities. In closing, I encourage you to reflect on your own experiences of identity. How do you define yourself, and how do you see others? What narratives shape your understanding of who you are? Let the insights from the third man paradox guide your thoughts as you navigate the complexities of identity in your life. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. I hope this discussion has inspired you to think critically about the nature of identity and the connections we share. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and embrace the richness of your own unique narrative. Introduction to the mirror paradox. Now we're diving into an intriguing concept known as the mirror paradox. This paradox challenges our understanding of perception and reality, prompting us to reflect on how our self-image can be both revealing and deceptive. The mirror paradox poses a fascinating question. How do we perceive ourselves through reflections? When we stand before a mirror, we see an image that seems to represent our true selves. But is that reflection an accurate portrayal of who we are, or is it merely an illusion? Historically, mirrors have held a significant place in art, literature, and philosophy. They symbolize self-examination and introspection, often leading to profound insights about identity. However, the paradox arises when we consider that what we see in the mirror is not the entirety of our being. It is a two-dimensional representation, stripped of depth and complexity. As we look into the mirror, we might focus on our physical appearance, but this can lead to a narrow understanding of ourselves. Our reflections can become distorted by societal standards of beauty, age, and perfection. This creates a dissonance between our self-perception and the deeper realities of who we are. For example, many people experience a disconnect between their self-image and how they feel internally. This highlights the misleading nature of mirrors. Moreover, the mirror paradox invites us to question the very nature of reality. If our reflections can deceive us, how do we know what is real? This inquiry extends beyond the physical realm. It touches on our emotional and psychological experiences as well. As we proceed through our discussion, let's keep these questions in mind. The mirror paradox serves as a reminder that our perceptions are not always aligned with reality. It encourages us to explore the complexities of our identities and the ways we understand ourselves in a world filled with images and expectations. So, let's continue our journey into the depths of perception and reality, and see how the mirror paradox can enrich our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Discussion of perception questions. As we delve into the mirror paradox, it's essential to explore the intricate questions about perception that arise from this concept. Our reflections in the mirror serve as a fascinating lens through which we can examine not only our physical selves, but also our inner identities. When we look into a mirror, we often focus on our appearance. We might scrutinize our hair, our skin, or how our clothes fit. This moment of self-examination can quickly transform into a judgmental assessment, influenced by societal standards of beauty and perfection. But what does this say about our perceptions? Are we truly seeing ourselves, or are we merely seeing a curated version shaped by external expectations? In many ways, mirrors can distort our self-image. They reflect only the surface, leaving out the layers of our thoughts, feelings, and experiences. This limitation can lead us to develop an identity that is overly reliant on appearance. For example, someone may feel confident one day based on how they look in the mirror, yet that confidence can crumble if they perceive themselves differently in another moment. This fluctuation illustrates how fragile our self-perception can be when tied too closely to external reflections. Furthermore, the concept of reflection extends into our emotional and psychological landscapes. We often carry internal mirrors that reflect our self-worth, based on past experiences, relationships, and societal feedback. If we face criticism or rejection, these internal mirrors may warp our self-image, making us see ourselves in a negative light. This raises critical questions. How do our reflections influence our self-esteem? How do we reconcile the image we see with the person we feel we are inside? The mirror paradox encourages us to confront these issues, pushing us to look beyond the surface and explore the deeper dimensions of our identity. As we continue to unpack these ideas, let's remain mindful of how our perceptions can shape our realities. The way we see ourselves in the mirror can serve as both a reflection of truth and a source of illusion, reminding us that understanding our identities is a multifaceted journey. Let's move forward and explore how the problem of reality and illusion plays a significant role in this paradox, enriching our understanding of ourselves and our perceptions. The problem of reality and illusion. As we continue our exploration of the mirror paradox, we delve into the critical issue of reality versus illusion. This concept challenges us to reconsider how our reflections can mislead us, prompting us to question what is genuinely real and what may merely be an illusion. When we gaze into a mirror, we see an image that seems authentic and familiar. However, this reflection is a flat representation, stripped of depth, emotion, and context. While we may see ourselves in that moment, we must remember that a mirror cannot capture our full essence. It doesn't reflect our thoughts, experiences, or the nuances of our personality. Instead, it presents a static image that can easily distort our understanding of who we are. Consider how this distortion can manifest in our daily lives. We often compare our reflections to societal ideals, what we think beauty, success, or happiness should look like. This comparison can lead to feelings of inadequacy or self-doubt. For instance, if someone sees a flawless image in the mirror and feels they don't measure up, it can create a false narrative that they are somehow less worthy or valued. This disconnect between perception and reality can have profound effects on mental health, influencing how we navigate our lives and relationships. Moreover, the problem of reality and illusion extends beyond physical appearance. It challenges us to consider how our internal narratives shape our self-perception. Just as a mirror can reflect a distorted image, our minds can create illusions about our worth and capabilities. If we internalize negative feedback or past failures, we may begin to see ourselves through a distorted lens, failing to recognize our true potential. The mirror paradox thus serves as a powerful reminder that our perceptions are often colored by external influences and internal biases. It prompts us to ask, how can we discern what is real from what is merely an illusion? How can we cultivate a more accurate and compassionate understanding of ourselves? As we explore these questions, let's consider the role of self-reflection and mindfulness in this process. By becoming more aware of our thoughts and feelings, we can challenge the illusions that may cloud our self-perception. In the next part of our discussion, we'll delve into the social and psychological aspects of how mirrors and perceptions influence our identities, further enriching our understanding of the mirror paradox. Social and psychological aspects. As we navigate the complexities of the mirror paradox, it's essential to examine the social and psychological dimensions that influence how we perceive ourselves and others. Mirrors are not just reflective surfaces. They embody societal expectations and cultural narratives that shape our identities. From a young age, we are bombarded with messages about beauty, success, and worth. These messages often come from media, peers, and even family. When we look in the mirror, we may unconsciously measure ourselves against these standards. For example, social media platforms are filled with curated images that promote specific ideals of beauty and lifestyle. This constant exposure can skew our perceptions, leading us to believe that our worth is tied to our appearance or adherence to these ideals. This societal pressure can create a cycle of comparison and self-criticism. When we look in the mirror, we may find ourselves focusing on perceived flaws rather than appreciating our unique qualities. The impact of this can be profound, as it may lead to issues such as body image disorders, anxiety, and low self-esteem. In seeking validation from our reflections, we risk losing sight of our intrinsic value, which extends far beyond physical appearance. Psychologically, the mirror also serves as a tool for self-reflection. However, this reflection can be both empowering and damaging. On one hand, mirrors can encourage us to engage in self-examination, prompting us to consider our behaviors, values, and aspirations. On the other hand, if we're not careful, this self-examination can devolve into a harsh critique, where we focus solely on our perceived shortcomings. Furthermore, the way we see ourselves can influence how we interact with others. If we view ourselves negatively, we may project that negativity onto our relationships, impacting our ability to connect authentically. Conversely, a positive self-image can foster confidence and openness, allowing us to build meaningful connections. The mirror paradox thus challenges us to reconsider the narratives we accept about ourselves and the societal influences that shape these narratives. It encourages us to cultivate a sense of self that is grounded in authenticity rather than external validation. As we move forward, let's reflect on how we can break free from these limiting perceptions. By recognizing the social constructs that influence our identities, we can begin to forge a path toward a more compassionate and holistic understanding of ourselves. In the next segment, we'll conclude our exploration of the mirror paradox and reflect on the insights we've gained throughout this journey. Conclusion. As we come to the end of our exploration of the mirror paradox, it's essential to reflect on the insights we've gathered about perception, identity, and the intricate relationship between reality and illusion. This journey has revealed how our reflections, both literal and metaphorical, can shape our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Throughout our discussion, we've seen that mirrors can serve as both tools for self-examination and sources of distortion. They reflect not just our physical appearances, but also the societal expectations and internal narratives that can influence our self-image. The paradox lies in the fact that while we may seek clarity and understanding through our reflections, we often encounter confusion and disillusionment instead. The questions raised by the mirror paradox invite us to challenge the superficial ways we define ourselves. It reminds us that our identities are complex and multifaceted, extending far beyond the images we see in mirrors or the ideals we encounter in society. By acknowledging the limitations of our reflections, we can begin to embrace a more holistic view of our identities, one that encompasses our experiences, emotions, and authentic selves. Moreover, as we cultivate self-awareness and mindfulness, we can learn to navigate the influence of societal pressures on our self-perception. Instead of allowing the mirror to dictate our worth, we can strive to develop a sense of self that is rooted in authenticity and self-acceptance. This shift not only benefits our own mental and emotional well-being, but also enhances our relationships with others, fostering deeper connections based on genuine understanding. In conclusion, the mirror paradox is a powerful reminder of the complexities of identity. It encourages us to look beyond the surface and engage with the deeper realities of who we are. As we part ways today, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences with mirrors, both physical and metaphorical. How can you challenge the narratives that shape your self-perception? How can you embrace the richness of your identity? Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope our discussion has inspired you to think critically about the nature of perception and the importance of understanding ourselves in a world filled with reflections. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and celebrate the beautiful complexity of your own unique narrative. And now we have reached the end of the video. I won't say goodbye. See you next time.